Hey, it's Mr. Skangy here. Just want to go over the Foss Creek map with you here. The Foss Creek map, just to let you know, is not a real place, but it's going to help us to understand real USGS maps, which we'll be looking at next week in class. And so what I'm going to do is we're just going to go through this map one by one, and we're going to go over each of the answers. And so just check your work with what I have and what you see up on the screen. Number 1 says, label each of the contour lines with its elevation. Well, before you can do that, you have to understand what is the distance between each line. And that's not always that easy to figure out. But if you count how many spaces there are, how many elevation changes, which in this case, if you start at 0 sea level and you count each line until you get to 100, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines to get to 100, or basically 5 spaces or 5 elevation changes. So if I divide 100 by the 5 spaces, I would get, if you said 20 meters, you would be correct. So that makes it easy. Now we just start at 0 sea level and you go up 20 every time. So 0, 20, 40, 60, 80. Then they already gave you 100, 120, 140, 160. And that relates because the peak is 168. So that is your labeling of your contour lines. Now, next 2 questions ask about benchmarks. Benchmarks, as you can see here, is a picture of a benchmark. Not that big, about as big as like a cup. That would probably be the size of it. And if you look at it, basically it's just a metal thing that tells you different bits of information. Put there by the U.S. Geological Survey, who makes the maps we'll be looking at next week, and there's elevations usually listed on there. And I see on this one it says there's $250 fine if you remove it. So you'll find these lots of different places out there. This is a USGS benchmark. Anyhow, if you look at the bottom there, we're gonna only really 2 benchmarks on this whole entire map, and the lowest one is of course negative 20 meters. So you should have a circle around that one, and the highest one would be our peak, which is 168 meters right there. Number 4 asks you to draw an arrow to show the direction of the water as it flows down the rocky river. Well, now you have to know which direction is down. Let's check out the river there. The only way you know which way is down is you look at the elevation, and we know that the lower elevations are closer to the right side of the page, higher elevations closer to the center of the page. So your arrows should look like this. That's the way that water would flow, because it's going to flow, of course. We say water only flows one direction, and that's down. Number 5 is basically, we've already talked about, but what is the contour interval used on this map? And you should have written in there 20 meters. Okay, now number 6, draw a trail that's not very steep that you would use to walk from L3's Dry Lake to Lawrence Peak. Well, first you have to find L3's Dry Lake down there at the bottom, and then draw a line that's not too steep. So basically what you want to do is you don't want to go up any lines too quickly. So I'm just going to show you my trail that I drew. This doesn't have to necessarily be your trail, but your trail has to do some similar things to that my trail did. So if you look here, my trail starts at the Dry Lake, and I try to take the least steep path up and try to kind of zigzag back and forth. If I would just go straight up the mountain from L3's Dry Lake up to the peak, that wouldn't be a least steep peak hike, because I'd be going over those contour lines too often, which would mean it would be a very steep climb. Just think about your blue mountains that we used in class, and think about going straight up that as opposed to maybe taking more of a kind of a weave up the side of the mountain. So your answer to 6 should look something like that. Now, in just a moment here, you're going to be folding your maps, but what you need to first do is draw a line with the ruler from A to B. You fold it in half, and so it'll look like this. And then basically you're going to use those A's and B's to help you to draw another profile, which you should be very familiar with, that we did last week in class. You're going to put A basically right on that A line there, and B's not going to touch. And if you look right there, B doesn't really touch, or in the bottom corner, B doesn't really touch the B line. Just as long as you keep A on the A line and keep those lines straight all the way up, you should be able to make a nice profile map. Now I do want to, before I leave here, I do want to give you one hint that's going to really help you make this profile map correct. If you look, you're going to start with, of course, 0, sea level. That's the lowest elevation on your map, and that's going to be listed right there on that dark line. You're going to put a dot basically right on that dark line. Look over at the other side next to the A, right here. That's not a dark line. Now that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to give you any more. I think you can figure it out from here. But make sure that you're putting your dots in the right spot. That's all I have for you here. Thanks for listening.